Hello and welcome to one of your final video lectures. I don't think this will be your final video lecture, but it'll be one of your finals. Today we're going to be talking about supply chain and supply chain management. We're talking about the distribution system. We're going to be talking about vertical distribution systems and horizontal distribution systems. We're also going to talk about power and who has the power throughout the distribution systems. Shouldn't be too long of a lecture. I'm hoping to keep it within 20-25 minutes or so. At the end, as always, there will be a couple of discussion questions. Please answer those discussion questions and turn them into me on Monday. So without further ado, let's get started with supply chain. So as I said in the beginning, in the introduction, today's video lecture is all about supply chain and channel management. Think about marketing. Marketing is all about the customer and the customer interaction. Marketing has the 4 P's: pricing, promotion, product, and place, or distribution. Today we're going to talk about the 4th P, which is distribution, or how to get a product to the consumer. Oftentimes distribution is done through, say, a retail channel, like you go to a store and you buy something. Sometimes it's through the mail. Sometimes, though, there's multiple channels in order to get a product to somebody. For instance, it might go from a manufacturer to a distributor, from a distributor to a warehouse, from a warehouse then to a wholesaler, from a wholesaler to a retailer, and then finally a consumer comes in and buys it. So there's a lot of different ways in which a product can get to a consumer. Service is the same way. Oftentimes, those services are not distributed. Services are just from the manufacturer to the consumer. Today we're going to really talk mostly about supply chain and channel management when it comes to product and how to get products to the customers. Really, supply chain management really makes it efficient for the consumer. For instance, take a look at computers. If you want to take a look at, say, all the different manufacturers of a computer, like you have Dell and you have HP and you have Apple and you have Asus and all those different computers. If you, as a consumer, wanted to compare and look at all those computers and we didn't have retail outlets or supply chain management, you would have to go to each one of the manufacturers. You'd have to take a look at those computers and compare and contrast. However, you don't have to do that because we have Best Buy. So now you can go to one spot, Best Buy, and you can take a look at all the different computers there. So that's why retail stores are important to consumers. In this particular graphic, what you see is retail distribution centers that go to different stores. So there are retail distribution centers for each one of those computers, and then those retail distribution centers go to the Best Buys. So it makes it easy and it reduces transactions and it reduces times for the store or on the seller side, but it also reduces transactions and it reduces times for the consumer or on the buyer side. So with supply chain management, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it as efficient as possible, as well as cost effective as possible to get products, to get the goods to the consumer. So marketing channels add value by sometimes adding things to the product, like packaging or things like that. Sometimes they add value by just having the product available. Factory consumers would require a lot more transactions, like I explained in the last slide, than if you've got a retail distribution center or a retail center like Best Buy. So the way marketing channels add value is they reduce the number of transactions. They increase value for consumers because they decrease time for consumers. A consumer now can go to one place, Dick's Sporting Goods, for instance, and buy just about any athletic apparel or any athletic equipment that they wanted to. Think about it. Think about if there wasn't a Dick's and you wanted to buy a baseball versus a football. You'd have to go to two different stores. Suppose there wasn't a Dick's and you wanted to buy running shoes versus football cleats. You'd have to do two different stores. Now, because we have retail stores, you can go in and get all of your sporting goods in one place. And then, of course, it makes it more efficient and more effective for the consumer, as well as making it more effective and more efficient to the manufacturer. A manufacturer can take all the products that they manufacture, especially if it's a food manufacturer, and put it in one distribution warehouse. So take a look at Kraft. Kraft manufactures all kinds of different products, all kinds of different foods. Well, they can now take those foods and they can truck those foods into one warehouse, and then that warehouse will distribute it for them into each retail store. Therefore, Kraft doesn't, and maybe it's not retail store, maybe it's a restaurant. Therefore, Kraft can send one truck, and then the distribution center can send out many trucks to restaurants and many trucks to wholesale food companies and places like Wegmans and Tops and that type of thing. And it makes it more efficient and more effective for the manufacturer because they don't have to do it. The distribution warehouse will do it for them. So channel aspects, they meet customer expectations. They bring products and services to the customer, more efficiency. They fulfill delivery promises. Look at Amazon. You know, Amazon, if you're an Amazon Prime, you're going to get the product in 2 days. And sometimes Amazon doesn't even have that product. It might come from a third-party source, but they still get it to you in 2 days. That's the efficiency of their supply chain management. That's their efficiency of their distribution center. In that particular case, with Amazon, for instance, if Amazon is selling a product which they don't have, it might be a third party. Amazon then is efficient in the transaction. You buy it from Amazon, you pay Amazon, Amazon sends information to the third party, they send it to you, you pay Amazon, Amazon pays them. So it's channel efficiency, even though Amazon never sees the product and never touches the product or what have you, they're fulfilling the delivery promise and they're making delivery easy by making it available to you, taking the money and collecting the money from you. So it's very reliant, it's very efficient, and it helps the third party that is contracting with Amazon, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. It helps the third party that's contracting with Amazon, as well as it helps you as the consumer because you can get a product now very efficient, very effective from Amazon. So designing market channels, a lot of different things goes into designing market channels. It all depends on how complex the product is, how expensive the product is, what type of product it is, how if you can store the product, lots of different things. But really there's three ways. You can go manufacturer, directly consumer. A good example of that would be a farm market or a pumpkin patch as the most simplest example, where a farmer grows the produce and they have a produce stand, and a customer comes and buys it right from them. That's direct from manufacturer to customer. Sometimes there's other products that are direct from manufacturer from customers. Sometimes books. If you go to a textbook, for instance, if you go to McGraw-Hill's site, you can buy a textbook right from McGraw-Hill. They manufacture the textbook. Sometimes they distribute it, but sometimes they manufacture it. It goes right to the consumer. Sometimes you have manufacturers to retailers to consumers. Oftentimes, a lot of produce the same way. You have a farmer that grows the produce, it goes to Wegmans, and Wegmans goes right to you. Sometimes cheeses or meats. Oftentimes meats are the same way. A meat goes right from a butcher right to the retailer and to the customer. Sometimes, not very often, but sometimes you can have some dry goods, canned goods, and that type of thing that goes right from the manufacturer to the retailer if they're a smaller outfit. And then finally, most every product goes from manufacturer to wholesaler, wholesaler to retailer, retailer to customer. So for instance, Kraft Foods or Campbell's Soups or Dinty Moore Beef Stew, all those products will go from the manufacturer, then they'll go to a food distribution wholesaler. That food distribution wholesaler then will distribute it to Tops, it'll distribute it to Wegmans, it'll distribute it to Trader Joe's and all of the other different food outlets, and then those food outlets will distribute it to the consumer. So basically, those are the three different types. Those are examples of it. I would make sure that I knew this particular slide because it makes for very good test questions. So the types of vertical marketing systems or vertical distribution center systems. Administered vertical marketing systems, oftentimes that means you've got administration duties that are going from one to another. Liken it to buying a house. If you're buying a house, you're going to use a real estate broker, you're going to use a bank, you're going to use a lawyer to buy the house. All of those are different vertical marketing systems that is going to deliver that house that's already built to the consumer. Then you've got contractual vertical marketing systems, and that contractual vertical marketing system might be a wholesaler, where you contract with the wholesaler to distribute goods to you, that type of thing. And then finally, corporate vertical marketing systems is when you own the vertical marketing system. For instance, Wegmans owns their own food distribution warehouses. So Wegmans food distribution warehouse is actually owned by them. So for instance, Kraft Food or Dinty Moore will go into a Wegmans vertical owned wholesale distribution system, and then that will distribute to all the different Wegmans stores. So they don't have to pay another wholesaler to do that. They own it corporately. So now let's talk about power. Different power for, and I'm not exactly sure why this particular slide is in this chapter, but since it is, we're going to deal with it. Different power, people hold different power based on certain reasons. One reason is they hold power based on reward, based on coercive, based on referent power, based on expertise power, information power, and legitimate power. Oftentimes, people or businesses hold power over another business based on these. Reward power. Reward power, someone holds power over somebody because they have the ability to reward somebody for doing well. I hold reward power over you guys because I can reward you with a good grade if you do well. Coercive powers, people hold coercive power over them because then they have the ability to punish or not do business with somebody, so they have power over them. For instance, a distributor might have coercive power over a retail chain by refusing to do business with that retail chain. Referent power is power that you have hold over somebody because somebody likes you and they want to do business with you, or they want to follow whatever direction you give. Expertise power, I also have expertise power over you because I have expertise in marketing. I have expertise in a particular field, a particular alliance, or something like that. In businesses, they might have expertise or be able to do something that somebody else can't do. Information power is another one, having power over somebody because they have more information, and that person needs the information, so they have power over for there. And then finally, legitimate power means that you have to do it because they're your superior. So vendor managed inventory is also part of the supply chain manager distribution, supply chain and distribution channel. In vendor managed inventory, manufacturers are responsible for inventory level, and whenever a store or a retail outlet or something needs it, then they will contact the manufacturer, and the manufacturer will deliver it. Oftentimes, manufacturers are responsible for inventory. They'll have their own warehouse and all in order to do that. Data is shared via EDI or electronic data electronic data information. And then manufacturers replenish inventory. Walmart, because they want to cut their prices and keep their prices as low as possible, has manufacturers responsible for their inventory. That way, Walmart doesn't have to hold the inventory, because remember, inventory is expensive. You got to pay money for the inventory. So the longer you hold it, the longer that you're tying up money, and that money can be used for other things. So in order to keep Walmart's prices down, they have their manufacturers, their suppliers, hold all their inventory, and they deliver the inventory when they need it. So Walmart just has a very small safety stock so they don't run out of products. Also, you also see that Walmart does run out of products quite often. And then they'll have that vendor managed inventory. What it's trying to do is, as you can see by this last bullet, what we're trying to do is we're trying to reduce vendors' costs. So here's marketing and merchandise flow. It goes from the manufacturer, it could go to the distribution center. The distribution center then would hold it, goes to the store, and then to the customer. With vendor managed inventory, the store doesn't hold the inventory, the distribution center does. With non-vendor managed inventory, oftentimes the store will hold inventory. Stores don't like to do it because whoever holds the inventory, it's more expensive for that particular organization or establishment. So it can go one of two ways. It can go either into the distribution center, as you can see, or it can go to the store. The final way, as I talked about, is also could go right from the manufacturer to the customer. Sometimes when you have customized products, it'll go right from the manufacturer to the customer. Customized cars, for instance, really high-end, like Lamborghinis and Ferraris and that type of thing. Customers oftentimes can place an order right with the manufacturer, and they have a customized type of product. A lot of times with yachts also, somebody wants to buy a $10 million yacht. They will customize it right from the manufacturer. The manufacturer will start to build the yacht, and they will build the yacht right for the customer, right to the customer's specs. Distribution centers, again, are places where they'll hold inventory from manufacturer going into a retailer and manufacturer going into someplace else. They manage inbound transportation of products. They manage outbound transportation of products. They receive and they barcode scan with RFID. They cross-dock. If you want to know what cross-docking is, make sure that you take a look at the appendix with the glossary. It talks about cross-docking. They get merchandise ready to go to the retail floors. They pick, they pack, they ship, and then they ship it to stores. Oftentimes with distribution centers anymore, you can see in this particular video, or excuse me, this particular graphic image, you see a guy down there. A lot of times this is done by artificial intelligence and robotics anymore. Less and less people are working at distribution centers. More and more people, more and more distribution centers are using robotics in order to do that. And these robots, they scan the product in, they scan it with the robot. The robot will then go down through the aisles. They'll pick the product, they'll package the product, and then they will put it on the conveyor belt to be shipped. Just-in-time inventory systems is exactly that. What we're doing is we're trying to reduce inventory so that you have inventory just when you need it. That way the warehouse doesn't have to hold inventory, nor does the retail distribution center or the retail center. The more you can have just-in-time inventory, the lower the costs are going to be to the consumer. Because remember, inventory is expensive. You're tying up money, and that money you could be doing something else with. So it's less merchandise on a more frequent basis. And here's your glossary. We're talking about cross-docking and EDI and just-in-time and RFID and relationships and partnerships, supply chain management and vendor-managed inventory, VMI, etc. So that's going to conclude your video lecture for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Here are your discussion questions. And please make sure that you answer these discussions. I want you to not just mention the types or write down the power mentioned in slide 8, but I want you to describe the types of power, actually define them in slide 8. And until then, I will see you on Monday.